one shot of Jose Cuervo?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Alright, ladies, let me know if you need anything else or if you to help you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Hey guys, do you remember learning about that article about the Uncanny?
Oh yeah, that show with Mike Kelly and Paul McCartney.
It's actually Paul McCarthy, but okay.
It was a really good show.
It was great.
So good.
Let's cheers to it.
Ugh, I feel weird.
Actually, I'm starting to feel a little bit weird too.
Whoa, guys, I feel really strange. Alejandro, you look really weird, almost like a disturbing, unrecallable memory I have of you.
Heidi, looking at you is giving me goosebumps and a spine-tingling sensation, almost like deja vu. I'm confused.
This unrecallable situation seems weird and creepy. It's giving me an uncanny feeling.
Yeah, this is like Mike Kelly's show, an essay titled The Uncanny, where he discusses what the uncanny is. He describes the sensation being tied to remembering or trying to recall a disturbing, unrecallable memory. The sensation is provoked by objects, dead objects with a life of their own, such as wax figures, dolls, and automatons.
Yeah, this reminds me of the section of the reading that deals with scale, and it reminds me of my own artwork.
And the section on death masks remind me of my recent work with the life castings.
Bro, that's gnarly. It reminds me of the section titled The Part and the Lack, also known as the body without organs, and the part of wholeness, which is something I've been recently using in my work as well. Let's discuss this over a drink.
Hi guys. Whoa! You guys look super unfamiliar, but I kind of remember you. Do you guys want a shot?
Yes!
Yeah.
I have here this Kirkland Tequila Silver. Super good.
It really is a drink.
Enjoy. Let me know if you need anything else.
Thank you.
Bye.
Chug, chug,
Chug,
chug,
chug, chug, chug, chug, chug. So let's talk a little bit about scale. So scale is an important factor in Mike Kelly's work. During his show, The Uncanny, Kelly had included a lot of works that were about or bigger than life size. He did this because he wanted his pieces to maintain their own physical presence. With that being said, Kelly was really against using smaller than life-size objects. And although he did have the intention of including works that were small into his show, for example, one of Robert Graham's works from the 1960s, which was this house case made of plexiglass that had held miniature realistic wax female nudes, he ultimately decided not to include this piece in his show because of the doll analogy. And the doll analogy is basically this thing where viewers experience the work more mentally rather than physically, which kind of ties back into why Kelly is against using smaller objects in his show in the workplace. Because these smaller objects often invite their viewers to project onto them, and when this happens, viewers would often get lost in these objects, because in the process of projecting mental scenarios onto them, they would lose a sense of themselves physically. And although he didn't necessarily praise the smaller objects in his show, he did at least make reference to smaller objects in his essay. For instance, Kelly mentions stuffed animals, and he does so for a few reasons. One being that smaller objects like these kind of function as uncanny beings, and this, of course, does differ on the age and mental level of the user. Another reason has to do with how stuffed animals function as transitional objects. Infants can easily utilize stuffed animals as a representation of their caregivers or parents. And so while reading about scale, I often thought about my work and its relation to scale. Give Me Life is a series of standing boxes that were made with the intention to mimic the scale of a viewer's body. I utilize scale in my work as a means for viewers to have the opportunity to gauge with my work in a more intimate level while considering the chance for my forms to exist and have a presence in any given space. With that being said, I kind of want to talk a little bit about color. In his essay, Kelly had mentioned that color was once a material that was considered an absurdity on art. Color was a problematic meeting between what was considered signed and signified, and it was only meant to be used in painting. With that being said, polychrome sculpture did not really exist in the 19th century. The reason being had to do with how modernist works had continued on with the Greek prejudice / neoclassical misconception that classical Greek sculpture needed to be uncolored. Unfortunately, this misconception becomes overturned through time, and through the introduction of surrealism and later pop art, these movements kind of provided a different truthfulness to images in art and provided viewers the chance to examine images and color in relation to their daily experiences. And the overall essentially gave color the excuse it needed to become a part of sculpture and a greater part in art. And so that's all I have to say for you guys. Thanks for listening. Yay!
Hey guys, what's up? My name is Alejandro, and I guess the part that I got is I have to discuss the body part and wholeness. And basically, I want to start with a quote that says, "Beauty is like God. A fragment of beauty is complete," by Rodin. So basically, this paragraph talks about the body being shown in parts, but being registered as a whole. The part and the parent body are linked together by some type of adhesive that makes them a unit. It gets interesting when Kelly discusses Rodin's work. Rodin's body sculpture that are missing arms, legs, or heads were not kindly perceived by critics because of the brutality they showed. However, the public didn't really have a problem with them. A complication of Rodin's work is that they are not simple to look at. It can't be experienced in one single glance. The mind has to study the figures and picture the missing body part attached to the main body, meaning that the wholeness of that body fragment could not be taken away because it will always be an echo of the body. My work titled Vacant Home deals with the lack of body parts. This work is made to be seen as if a body is leaning under a rug with a foot sticking out. But when looked from a different perspective, there's no body under the rug. The brain is expecting to see a body creating the mass under the rug, but when it's not found, this creates an uneasy feeling and triggers the senses to get that uncanny feeling we're trying to get at. Alright, so the part and the lack, also known as the body without organs, the organs without body, sorry. So this topic discusses the body as a fragment that exists partially in its own. One of the most interesting ideas that Kelly discusses in this paragraph is the art object as a kind of fetish, a replacement for some real thing that is missing. This means that the art object works as a stand-in, which alludes to the idea that the real body must be somewhere out there. How creepy is that? It exists as a replica, but without a reality. When we see a realistic looking leg, it triggers something in our minds that reminds us that must have been alive at some point. And even worse, a part of bodies, which then you start questioning what happened to the body. Like, are they okay? Another really interesting idea that Mike Kelly brings up is the body as an anagram. He describes it like a kind of sentence. Anyways, he describes this idea where the body is a kind of sentence that can be rearranged in many ways to produce different meanings every time. In my most recent work, I am exploring this theme. I created molds of my own body and casted them in wax. I casted my stomach and knee and a part of my foot. I'm interested in the way the eye connects the dots. Even the body parts are separated. The body is perceived as a whole.
Hello and welcome. Please sit back and enjoy the drone in my monotone voice as I read off a poorly written script. A section from Mike Kelly's essay references how the uncanny can be evoked in the use of statues and how they can often remind the viewer of their own mortality. This section of the reading in particular reminds me of some of the reactions people had when looking at my castings, especially so with my face and one of my arms. I have heard people referring to my face as death masks, which is something I never intended on portraying. Who really wants to talk about that? It's not the most fun topic to bring up, am I right? Kelly states that when statues of human figures are created, they usually end up reminding us that we are just mere mortals and we eventually will die. Kind of like how I feel right now, as I'm reminded I suck at writing movie scripts, and I feel like I might die in the next few minutes if I keep this up. It is also mentioned that the feeling is amplified when statues are created from permanent materials such as stone or metal, and in my case, casting materials like plaster. Seeing the body in a permanent material reminds us that our own bodies are not, and that we are all going to be rotting away in the earth at some point. It is a primitive fear that our minds cannot erase. So maybe this is why for hundreds of years, we as humans have sculpturally represented the human body in materials that can be around for far longer than our organic cells. They serve as a surrogate for our expiring bodies. I think these are some of the things that happen when people see my face cast. Assistant, please help me. Thank you very much. Coupled with the high amount of detail and textures that is captured, such as the wrinkles in my skin and the pores on my face, other things add to this, like the expression on my face and the monotone color of the plaster. My face looks like it could have been cast off my dead body. I mean, look at it, it's freaky as hell. I don't know if others have had the same feeling, but when I stare at my face for long periods of time, I feel as if I'm waiting for them to open their eyes, as if there's a sense of life about them. And now that I think about it, when I look at them, I have something else to remind me that I'm just a walking, rotting piece of meat. Thanks, everyone. Another section of Kelly's essay that I think resonates in my castings is the statue as a stand-in. At some point during our existence, we made the switch from real human and animal sacrifice to the use of statues as a stand-in for real objects. Kind of like when someone stops eating meat and starts eating substitute meat products. The stand-in establishes the idea of a sympathetic magic, as Kelly calls it. The idea that the image of something could function at the same level as the real object. This concept has also laid some of the foundation to kitsch. where a less valuable object can step in for a more valuable one. Statues become common stand-ins when physical labor is required. A double of yourself was created, which could take on whatever task that needed to be done. Looking at more contemporary time periods, some statues, have become a somewhat dispensable person. Some have a sole purpose to become destroyed, like crash test dummies, effigies of hated political leaders, and even electrified human decoys to dissuade tigers from eating humans. These statues almost desire to be mistreated. Kelly thinks that maybe these statues desire a violent death so they may be released from their persuaded life. On another fascinating tidbit, it has also been shown that baby monkeys can be deceived to bond with monkey dolls as they would with their real monkey parents. Something that really interested me during my solo show was the reaction to my full arm cast, which combined a high fidelity of detail and the added uncanniness of real arm hair. Assistant, please. You see that hair? Oh yeah. Look at that. Look at all that hair. That's a good looking arm right there. Thank you. People either really liked my arm, while others were totally turned off and freaked out by it. I'm guessing those who were freaked out were having a major case of the Uncannies. Ha 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 ha.
Guys, what just happened?
I don't know. I feel like I had a really uncanny feeling.
Yeah, it's like, do you guys remember having this really long conversation about the Uncanny by Mike Kelly?
Maybe this drinking stuff is bad for you.
Let's go to the club!
Face, baby. Yeah, hey. Bust down, Tatiana. Yeah, hey. I wanna see you bust down. Bust down, Tatiana. Bust down, Tatiana. I wanna see you bust down. Pick it up, now break that shit down. Break it down, speed it up, and slow that shit down. Hold it down, slow it down. Bust it, bust it.